Hi there, I'm Anna.
Hi, and I'm Linda. We're from the Sewing Cafe. Welcome to This Week in Class.
This Week in Class offers simple, helpful, best practices and insights that you will learn during the time you're with us in class.
We're going to share with you some of our favorite tips and tricks, and if you want to learn more, why not sign up for one of our many sewing classes that we offer.
Hi, today we're going to talk about seam allowances, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch. And when do I use what seam allowance? How do I know? Well, we'll start with the 1/4 inch. So 1/4 inch seam allowance, you'll be using that on a stable fabric, such as a good quality cotton, when you're doing quilting. You don't want a bulky seam, so you're going to use a nice 1/4 inch seam and will finish off your fabric nicely. The other reason you would use a 1/4 inch is if you're sewing curves or small pieces. You don't want all that bulk. And so if you're using a nice 1/4 inch seam, you see how nicely that folds over and flattens out for me. A 5/8 inch or 1/2 inch seam, you'd have to be cutting it, trimming it down. But this way works really nicely. A 1/2 inch seam, we're going to use on bedding, pillows, and home deck projects and some bags. It's a little bit, your fabrics are more stable. If you used a 1/4 inch seam on this, it would get lost and it may not hold your fabric together as well. And you use about a 2.5 stitch length. And as you can see, it holds my fabric nice and it's not too bulky. When you move on to garments, the industry standard for garments is 5/8 of an inch. And that's if you have such as this, a loosely woven fabric, if you sew it at a 1/4 of an inch, your fabric could just all fray away and you wouldn't have any seam allowance, you'd have a big hole in your garment. So a 5/8 inch seam will give you a nice stitching line and gives you a nice seam allowance, which you can, if you have to, you can trim it down a little bit. The other thing is if you have to make alterations to a 5/8, you have enough there that you can let it out just a little bit. On sewing garments, though, you can also sew with a wider seam allowance if you have to. Just make sure when you're cutting out your pattern that you ensure that you add on that extra for your extra seam allowance. So hopefully that answers your questions and you know what seam allowance to use and when.
We hope you enjoyed This Week in Class and can use some of the tips in your next sewing adventure.
Yes, thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more, we have classes from beginner to advanced sewists. Come by for a visit. We'd love to meet you.